Hello there. My name is Alicia, aka Edmiston Creations, and I am a wife, mom, social worker, and athlete living in the mountains of South Central New Mexico. And this is a space where I like to share about my passions. I love making, mostly knitting and sewing, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker, so I do enjoy blending in general mental health and wellness tips into my making practice and sharing those here in this space. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, then please take the time to like, comment, or subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any future content. Hi, it's been a while. I have shared a post to my channel just to make subscribers aware of my absence, but on June 17th, the Salt and Southfork fires broke out in my hometown of Ruidoso, New Mexico in the morning. And so my family and I were evacuated on June 17th, and it's been a wild ride, but we are all safe and we're okay. And I will share more about that experience in a bit, but that's the reason for my absence. And it's just not been on my radar until recently to post a video update. But I was sitting Friday morning and knitting and watching my friend Pakasha's podcast on YouTube, she's also local. I will link to her podcast in the show notes, but I was watching her podcast while knitting the Friday morning, and I was like, it's time that I get back and do an update here. So where we're going today in this episode, I am going to share a bit about our experience with the Southfork and Salt Wildfires. Then I'm going to get into the hot release of the year, the Rhinebeck sweater by Andrea Mowery, DRK Framed. And I'm going to talk about the dress that I sewed that I'm wearing now to wear with my sweater. And also I'm going to share some mental health tips about how to, or your mindset when experiencing uncertainty and how to approach that. So that's our roadmap for today's episode. So let's dive in. So before I start about sharing with the Southfork and Salt fires, I do want to have a disclaimer here that this is my experience and my family's experience, and these were the choices that we made. They're unique to us, and many other people who experienced the Southfork and Salt fires in our town approached everything completely differently, and I respect that. Everyone did what they needed to in the time of a crisis, and so there's no judgment in how they approached the wildfires versus how we did. And also, there's wildfires all the time. I mean, we have wildfires consistently in New Mexico. Every year that we have lived in Ruidoso, there has been a wildfire close by. And obviously there's been devastating wildfires in other states. And again, everybody approaches natural disasters in a very, I think it's a very primal sort of way. We're in fight, flight, freeze. I mean, how do we handle this and maintain safety? And I mean, you do what you got to do. So I do want to put that disclaimer out there, that this was just our unique experience and how we went about approaching the wildfire evacuation. So on June 17th, around 9:30 in the morning, the Southfork and Salt Fires broke out in Mescalero Apache tribal land that borders Ruidoso, our hometown. And my husband was actually working in Mescalero that morning and came home around lunchtime. By then, the wildfire had really grown, and so he was driving home watching this wall of fire, seemingly moving right towards our home. So he was in a complete panic and tiz, when he got home. And he was like, what are you doing? Like, do you not know about the wildfire? And I had sessions with clients that morning, so my phone was on do not disturb. So I had left it in the kitchen. I was downstairs doing some chores, so I didn't have my phone on me. And he was like, I had been trying to call you. What are you doing? I'm like, well, there's a wildfire. What? And so he said, yeah, look out our kitchen window. And so I look out our kitchen window and I see this big wall of orange and gray and black smoke plume, just a big plume in the air right outside our kitchen window. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't look good, but I mean, we had a wildfire over, just over there Memorial Day weekend. So like I said, I mean, we're used to having wildfires here. So I mean, I'll admit I've become a bit desensitized to seeing wildfire smoke in the air. And thankfully he was much more pushy about like, this isn't good. He just kind of kept repeating that. And so I'm like, okay, I wasn't used to like the role reversal here. Usually I'm the more anxious, like panicky one, and he's the more calm, level-headed one. But in this situation, our roles definitely were reversed, where I was very logical and methodical, and he was much more like, we need to go. But to be fair, he was the one that drove home and saw the wildfire from where it started and how it was growing. I didn't have that frame of reference, so it was easier for me to stay more objective. But to make a very long story compact for the sake of this episode, we ended up, I called a couple of local friends who both recommended that we go ahead and pack up and get out because of our kids, and we're a young family. They just didn't think it was a good idea that we stayed put. So around 1:45 p.m. was when I was aware of the fire, and by 3:45 we were leaving our home. So we had about 2 hours to pack up our life, our livelihood. And I will say, just in the moment, I was thinking about, all right, what are the things that we need to survive, and like the things that we do on a daily basis that create normalcy for us. Like, what do we need, aside from ourselves, obviously. So we loaded up the kids and our dogs, both of our vehicles, with as much of those daily livelihood materials as possible. I packed my sewing machine. I packed as much of my knitting stuff as I could think of. I mean, I basically grabbed project bags that had whips, and I tried to think of the yarn that would go with those projects to finish them. I tried to pack up as much of the handmade things that I had made for me, for the kids, for my husband. These things, I'm thinking about, like, in that moment, it was like, okay, what things can we not replace? Like, if our house burns down, what will not be replaceable? And I was just trying to grab as much of that stuff as I could. There was a board book about Halloween for my son. It's his favorite board book, and he's 3 and he reads it. He kind of just has memorized the story, and so he'll just partially read the book out loud. And the pages of the book have, his thumbprint, like, wear and tear on the book. And I think for about 20 minutes I was crying, walking around the house looking for that board book, and I could not find it for the life of me. And my husband was like, we've got to go, Alicia, you've got to let it go. So, I mean, inevitably when we drove off, there were things that I was like, great, we didn't get that. We didn't get this. We didn't, we left this. But what do? We got gas. We left town and went to a friend's place in Las Cruces. By the time we arrived in Las Cruces, so it was 3:45 when we left, maybe 5:36 p.m. We found out that the whole village had been evacuated because of the threat of the wildfire, and that, there's only two main arteries into Ruidoso. Those highways were under threat of the wildfire. One of the ways in connects into Highway 70, so you can either go towards Las Cruces the way we went, or you could go towards Roswell. The fire had already crossed Highway 70, but when we left, and we found that out because I struck up a conversation with a stranger that looked stressed at the gas station. So we chose to leave out the other, like the back way, basically, Highway 48. And we left and kind of took some back roads through Nogal Canyon. By the time we got down the mountain, the fire had crossed Highway 48 and burned through that area, and it was not passable. So we were very, very, very lucky that we left when we did. I'm very grateful my husband was so pushy to leave when we did. So we parked at our friend's house in Las Cruces for a while, and we had made plans for a family summer vacation to North Carolina to visit extended family. We were back and forth as to whether we should go there or not, but then when we were evacuated and we didn't know the status of our home, we decided that that was the best thing, to just go ahead and go to North Carolina a few days late, to provide stability for our children. So that way they could see their grandparents, their cousins, and just, really feel the love of our entire family. And gosh, after going to North Carolina, I didn't really realize how much my husband and I needed that too. North Carolina is where I grew up. It was very grounding. It was very therapeutic to be in the mountains that I knew and loved growing up. I was able to just really it was good for the soul. But the whole time we were there, we had these mixed feelings of guilt, like, should we be in New Mexico? Should we be here? And I mean, that was the choice that we made. And honestly, in hindsight now, and being back in Ruidoso, that really was the best decision for our family to go ahead and go. We had nowhere to go in the meantime here. So, I mean, what do you do? And we did find out that our home is still there, but it's not livable right now because of smoke damage and repairs that are needed. So we're in temporary housing situations until all of that stuff is taken care of and mitigated. There's a lot of feelings of guilt that our home is still standing structurally, and 95% of our neighborhood is just not. I mean, the people that we love and care about and we see on a daily basis, it's just tragic. And seeing the destruction of the wildfire is just, it's devastating. We're healing, and honestly, the more exposure I have to the burn scar, both in the forest and the homes that we once knew were there, I know most of the time whenever we get emotional, I think the first thing that we tend to do is apologize. And I want to say, I'm not going to apologize for the emotion. It's normal to feel very sad and upset in the event of a natural disaster and so much loss and tragedy. And I really want to normalize that for people. And if I can model that for you here, like, that's what I'm gonna do. So I think the tendency to apologize comes from this place of we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable because of our discomfort. And where, I mean, yes, we are experiencing discomfort and sadness and loss. This is not your story. So it's mine. You don't have to take ownership of it. And where I do appreciate compassion and empathy, I mean, I have to say, sharing on Instagram the little bit that I have and just kind of my mindset through it, the uplift and the support from the making community has been just overwhelming. I deeply appreciate it, and I appreciate just anyone who has messaged me, who has commented or come out of the woodworks and sent us, you know, my family gift cards to help us out in the meantime. I mean, it has been much appreciated, and we have used those, you know, donations to us directly for clothes for the kids, shoes for the kids, toothpaste, dog leashes. I mean, for food, groceries, essential items that we just did not have. And that was such a blessing because we didn't know what insurance would cover or not. And, you know, it's just, everything's very stressful. So I do want to say thank you so much for all of the support that has been given to us so far. And even if you haven't like directly shared or messaged, like I can feel the uplift, you know, from people. So that's just much appreciated. So this is why I haven't really taken the time to podcast. You know, we were just in, you know, we've moved around quite a bit, and we're going to be moving again into another temporary home this coming week. But that's where we will be until our home is livable again. So that's nice. We feel like we can really park it in this next place and kind of fully decompress until our home is ready. And we're hoping that in another month or two, we'll be able to be back home. So, so that said, you know, kind of with the mixed feelings, I do want to say, like, the mixed feelings of like, well, what do we do? How do we help? You know, guilt for, I don't know, a lot of things. I do want to say it's really important in times of tragedy, whether it's your experience or whether it's a bigger experience, like, you know, bigger political conflicts in the world and things like that. I think sometimes it can make our normal day-to-day activities feel trite or like they don't really matter because our perspective is very open, and it's kind of like the metaphor of a camera lens, right? Like the camera lens is really broad and wide, and that aperture is fully open to take everything in. It's like, oh, okay, I just experienced a wildfire. People lost their homes. Like, how can I be excited about knitting or put on a happy face for a sweater pattern release? Well, you know what? That normal, regular, day-to-day stuff matters. It matters because it brings normalcy to our lives. It brings joy to our lives. And, you know, I will say I was very lucky. This is kind of a nice segue, I guess, into talking about framed. I was very, very fortunate to be able to test knit this beautiful design by Andrea Mowery. And, you know, as soon as I saw the design, I love quilt squares, and I immediately thought of barn quilts that I would see running and cycling through the mountains of North Carolina. And it's just kind of fitting and perfect that we were in North Carolina to be able to do a photo shoot there. I had all kinds of like guilt about going ahead and doing a photo shoot with all that we were going through, but I decided, like, you know what, this is a moment of joy and normalcy, and I'm gonna let myself feel joy in this time with so much uncertainty, and that's okay. That was my choice, and I own that. So, another person would have maybe made a different choice, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you just didn't feel like it would work for you and align for you, that's okay too. You don't have to push through and feel joy if that's not what you're ready to do. And I am 100% certain that Andrea would have understood if I just said, hey, I'm not going to have photos ready for release day. I just can't. So, I just think that it's important to give space to whatever choice you make, and that's okay. It's what you need. There's not a right or a wrong here. I made the choice to, like I said, go ahead and celebrate these normal day-to-day things, because I just felt like that was really important, again, to give stability to myself, but also to give stability to the kids. They were present at the photo shoot and running around in the background. And if you saw my photos on Instagram, often like when I was smiling or like looking off camera, I was smiling at them. And my husband was there too with them. So, that was really nice to be able to have them there with me. And it gave me something to smile about in those pictures. So anyway, I shared on Instagram about my color choices. Of course, if you've been following me for some time, you know my love affair for Ranch Romance. So Ranch Romance was the first, I actually chose Ranch Romance first as my contrast color, and because of the quilt squares making me think of barn quilts that I would see running and cycling through the mountains of North Carolina, Rusted Rainbow was my immediate choice for Dream State. So that's my colors in my sweater. And or for the main part of my sweater, my frame is Mr. Pocket, to represent the deep saturated greens that you get in the mountains of North Carolina. So I made sure that so I with my sleeves, whenever I do any project with Spin Cycle that has color work, I really like asymmetry. I mean, if you can tell, my tattoos are asymmetrical. So I'm not a symmetrical girl. Asymmetry I just find visually pleasing to my eye. So I have one sleeve that's kind of my darker Rusted Rainbow, and the other sleeve I made sure to intentionally incorporate some of the golds and the yellows and a lighter skein that I have kind of going through the body. This is the front, and then this is my back. And I knit the size 2. I am going to put this on. So it is a beautiful summer day here, but it's summer, so I didn't want to wear my sweater for the whole episode. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, and I am going to put it on and show you what it looks like on the body. I'm not a technical whiz with these things, so I can't just pop up a picture. I'm still learning. So I am just going to twist my camera and stand up and show you, and then sit back down, twist the camera again. That's going to be my technical skill set, I guess, today. But I am going to talk just a little bit more about the, just in general about the sweater before I put it on and do like a little sachet with it on. So I knit this on a US 5. And I was able to get gauge with that. My ribbing I did on a 3, a US 3. All of the details for my sweater are on my Ravelry project page, which I will have linked in this, which I will have linked in the show notes, so you can read all of this information there. I knit the size 2 with a few modifications that were given permission to me by Andrea and Megan, who runs her test knits. I did the size 3 yoke depth because Alicia's got some traps and some lats, and I need some more depth in that shoulder area. So I was very grateful that I was given permission to get some extra depth because the sweater fits me perfectly with that. That modification. And I also did add a little bit of length to the sleeve because my sweater has less ease than what Andrea models. I believe she's wearing the size 3 that has like about 10 inches of positive ease. And I was really afraid of positive ease until I tested the Nebula sweater. And now I'm not afraid of positive ease. So this sweater has about 4 or 5-ish or something inches of positive ease on me. So it's closer fitting than what some of the other testers have modeled. But that's kind of cool. Like you can see what changing the ease looks like on the body in different sizes and different shapes. So that's part of what I love about like knitting and seeing knit projects come to life, is how different colors make the design look different, but how changing the ease, you know, now I'm very aware that like changing the ease can completely change the look of a sweater too. And that's super cool. Like it's a fun element for me to play with now as a maker. So I'm very grateful for that. So, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put it on while I talk to you. The process of knitting this sweater was very meditative, and just make sure that my bracelet doesn't catch. Was very meditative and rhythmic. I just love that. It's like shake like a dog. So yeah, like I found I would just like memorize the colors and the stitching. I just loved it. And yeah, I've got some guns too, so my sleeves are, you know, more fitted. But I really like that look. So and the length is perfect. Whenever I blocked my sweater, I don't aggressively block my sweaters like ever. So even though this is superwash, it did grow a little bit, but it did not grow as much as maybe some of the other testers said theirs grew, or like even maybe as much as Andrea said it grew in the pattern, just because I didn't pin mine at all. Like I literally laid it flat and just let it do its thing. Like it dried the way it wanted to dry, and like this is what it looks like on me. And I really love this fit. Some people, you know, may not like a drop shoulder sweater that fits the body as closely, but this is like, this really fits my style and the way that I wear things. So yeah, here she is. Let me see. I will say, I've noticed a lot of people have asked questions about color dominance, like with the stranded color work. Girl, girl, guy, whoever's watching this, people, look at me. I mean, I'm assuming that it's only women watching me. And there's totally men who knit as well. I did not worry about color dominance at all. I always held Ranch Romance in my, I had Dream State in my left hand and Ranch Romance in my right hand. And that's how I knit the whole sweater. So I did not stress about color dominance. And I mean, Andrea has said repeatedly, she said on her podcast and also in the live that they had together talking about the inspiration for Spinster's Daughter and Framed. I mean, I don't think anyone who knit the sweater that in the group of the Spinsters and Candace and Andrea, I don't think any of them worried about color dominance. I did not either. Several of the people that tested the sweater that I know personally did not worry about color dominance. And I mean, the sweater turns out beautifully, whatever you do. Oh, this was the first time I had never knit color work flat. So if you're intimidated by that, please don't be. The flat color work sections actually go pretty quickly. I am a continental knitter, so for the flat color work, I just knit with knit or purled with. Oh wait. When on the knit rounds, I did color work with two hands. That's how I typically do color work. But then on the rounds where I was purling, I just purled and dropped my yarn and picked up the other one. I can purl with my right hand, but I don't purl as like prettily. So I wanted to make sure that my purls were consistent. So that's why I chose to I would just do one color, purl, 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 drop the color, spread out my stitches to make sure my float was the right length and or even a little long, and then pick up the other color, purl, purl, purl. And I made sure that my color, like the color dominance remained the same. And I always forget which way it goes, so I don't want to say which one. I made sure one of the yarns was always under the other one with my floats, but I don't remember which one that was. So I don't want to say for fear of getting it wrong, and I don't want to mess anybody up like thinking about it. So, but this was the first time I've ever knit anything flat. So if I can do it, you totally can do it. It will be okay. It's worth it for this sweater. And then you get to, I mean, the collar and all of this is just one color. So your short rows are all in the main color. And then you are knitting in the round for the sleeves. So the sleeves just zip by. And I mean, I added a repeat to mine since I have less ease in my sweater. I needed the extra repeat to still get the 3/4 length that I wanted. So yeah, I mean, they still went by fast, even adding that extra repeat. So okay, I think that's all I can say about the sweater. So I want to show you what this looks like standing up, and I am totally barefooted. But yeah, this was my outfit to wear with this, but that I do have many other outfits and ways to style this that I just haven't really gotten to yet. But this is what I wore to show off the framed sweater. And yeah, and you can see, like, I really like the length on me. I have a super short torso, so this length really fits me well for high-waisted pants and dresses. So I can wear it with like all the things. So, and skirts. So yeah, I mean, this hits right at my natural waist. So you can see, I mean, I'm a very short torsoed person. Long limbs, short torso, as my coach would say whenever I was a triathlete and cyclist. So yeah, so that is Framed, or my version of Framed. And so thanks for bearing with me for the technical difficulties. So I'm going to take this back off because, oh, and I guess I could show you the inside. I'm going to try to like not take my earbuds out. That's kind of the hard, whoop, there went one. Okay. Well, and it went through the deck, so I won't be picking that back up. So that's kind of the hard part, taking it on and off, like along with messing my hair up. But I still have some ends that aren't woven in. That's hilarious. But here's the floats on the inside. If you know, are one of those people that like to see the inside of the sweater too. Here we go. There we go. I mean, it's just so fun on, I mean, oh, you could almost wear it inside out too, and I have a really cool sweater. But anyway, so that is Framed. I'm just gonna leave it inside out there. So this is the Orchards dress. This is what I sewed to wear with this. And actually, I sewed this, gosh, back in May. Yeah. This fabric is Merchant and Mills linen from the Black Mountain Yarn Shop. I love this dress. This is the second time I've sewn this. The first time I sewed it, it was with some denim from Osser, and I love that dress because it's just such a fun, like, neutral to wear with things. The Orchards dress has this nice relaxed fit. I mean, and this fabric makes me feel like I am a summer picnic table. I love it. I love it so much, and it's great for summer. It's very breathable. I showed you standing up. I love kind of twirling around in it and the airiness of the linen. The other thing that is super special about this dress is the buttons. These are custom clay heart buttons that Deirdre of Idle Wild Clay made for me. And I wanted to use them on this dress because just the sweater is so special. And I know when I was wearing the sweater, you couldn't really see the buttons, but like I wanted something near and dear to me, close to my heart, literally, for this make. And, hearts are a theme for me. I mean, I have a heart yarn tattoo with knitting needles. My dad's heart grapevine wreath. My dad had heart surgery. I've talked about that before, years ago. And so I have on heart earrings today. I mean, it's a theme. It's a thing. I have a heart between my kids' handprints on my arms. So needless to say, the heart is a very significant symbol to me. It is the origin of, just the origin of all things for me, and love, and centering around that for your life. So anyway, so that's why I wanted these buttons for this dress particularly. And it's just, it's awesome by itself, but I love the Orchards dress. I love the collar on it, and I love that it's sleeveless because it's really easy to wear. Sweaters like this that are like Framed that I have that are closer fitting, so I don't have bulk against my arms, and it just kind of, that bulk kind of feels funny to me. I can layer Framed over sleeve, like a tee or another long sleeve garment. Like I've done that, but I just prefer sleeveless when I'm layering most of the time. And it's real easy to throw a cardigan on with, or you know, a shawl. So it's just kind of the perfect like cozy dress. So I think this is a size 2. The only modification I made to the pattern was I lengthened the bodice by 1 inch. I do think that the next time I make it, I might lengthen the bodice even a touch more. But I really like how it turned out. And so there you go. That's the making. So I am making a second framed sweater. And so listen, I had all these grand plans that I would be done with this second sweater by now, but then wildfires happened. So I'm actually I'm really happy with how kind of just things unfolded, because now I can join the knit-along that Andrea and the Spinsters and Candace are all hosting for the framed sweater. So this is my progress on my second one. I haven't touched this since May. So yeah. So I am making my second one. I am doing a size 3 for, you know, a positive ease sweater, you know, now that I'm not afraid of positive ease. And this one is all Pishkin. I love Pishkin. Like, it is by the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. It is one of my favorite yarns of all time. So I knew when I finished up knitting my framed sweater, and I love Spinster's Daughter worsted. I will definitely be using that in future projects. It's just like, as I was knitting it, I was envisioning a Pishkin version because I am obsessed with Pishkin. And I'm also a non-superwash girl, true to heart. So this is a non-superwash yarn and ramolay wool and like all these fun, cozy things that I love. So, and I love the stitch definition of Pishkin, and I really wanted one that like didn't have color shifting yarn, that was just really graphic and blocky. So I am using York and Clay Dreaming as my 2 CCs, and my frame is Rank Bronc. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. I always want to say Ranch Bronc, but it's not got an H. But that's this really fun kind of purplish brown. I mean, it definitely reads more brown, but it's not brown. And I love that about the Farmer's Daughter Fibers like colorways, that they're like this color, but they're not that color. Which way is it gonna go? You don't really know. But anyway, I'm really excited to pick this one up and stitch along with everyone making a framed for Rhinebeck. I will not be going to Rhinebeck this year, but I am going to be with everyone in spirit, and I am super excited to make another frame. Who knows, I might make a third. It's just such a fun, satisfying knit. I could totally see that happening. So I'm looking forward to that. All right. So lastly, I had said we were going to talk a little bit about mindset when experiencing uncertainty. So I do want to touch on that as we wrap up here for today. I had a feeling this would be a longer episode just because there is, you know, it's been a while since I have recorded, but also just a lot of life has happened. So and I wanted to make sure that I spent the time, you know, to really share about these different things that have been going on. So you know, mindset when experiencing uncertainty is definitely a challenge, and it is a challenge because uncertainty is one of I think the most difficult things for the mind. It's really difficult for the mind to accept uncertainty or I don't know, because our minds are made to problem solve. You know, just like the lungs are made to breathe, our mind is made to solve problems. So whenever it experiences discomfort or uncertainty, it wants it to be this or that. It doesn't want it to be, I don't know, or both and. It never, it wants things to be a precise, singular answer with logic and understanding and reason. Well, the difficulty with that is life is not always logical. Life doesn't always have a reason. And there isn't always a singular answer. Sometimes it's many, 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 many shades of gray. So uncertainty is tough for the mind to swallow, and we can really just swim around in it and feel like I can't tread water anymore. I feel like I am just going to drown in this uncertainty. So the best thing I can recommend for experiencing uncertainty is to accept it and to embrace it and really lean into it. This is called using radical acceptance. It is a DBT skill, but it is also one of which is dialectical behavioral therapy, and an evidence-based approach, as well as acceptance is a psychological flexibility process in acceptance and commitment therapy. And these are the two primary approaches that I use in my practice as a therapist. But accepting uncertainty and the I don't know, and just sitting with it and feeling uncomfortable and not trying to change it. Like, the answer is, I don't know. Like, that is my singular answer. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it will be. I am okay, and I can sit with this. I'm still breathing. I'm still living. It's okay. Just kind of, reassuring yourself like that answers will come, maybe, but for now, right now, it's I don't know. So that is a practice, and it is not an easy one. And, if you have questions about that, or kind of the more nitty gritty of that, then please comment on the video and I can get to answering them either via comment, or I can do another video on acceptance practice itself, and leaning into uncertainty, like, more specifically. But for today, that's kind of what I want to touch on. And then I think the kind of coupled with that, there's so the acceptance practice is more of a being process. And then the doing side is really actively anchoring yourself, like anchoring yourself in what you do know. Because we're going with that. The mind hates uncertainty. I'm going to accept uncertainty and lean into it. But the mind really likes certainty. So I'm going to anchor myself in certainty while amidst an uncertain experience, and just letting myself feel that uncertainty. What helps me to feel that uncertainty is anchoring myself in the things that I know and feel very certain. So, for instance, an anchor for me in my life has always been movement. Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I love lifting weights and doing CrossFit. I was a 5-time state champion in high school in cross country and track. I mean, this is a lifelong thing. I grew up swimming on the swim team. I was a professional athlete in endurance sports, professional cyclist, triathlete, ultra runner, and marathoner. Like, movement has always been my medicine, and really exercising that physical component of the body has always made me feel a certainty in life. Like, I am in control of my physical body, my physical movement, my physical strength, and that makes me feel certain, even if everything in my life is like crumbling down. So that's an anchor for me. But I can only do so much, like exercise without like totally wearing myself out. So, and that's unhealthy to take it to the extreme. So another anchor for me is my creative process, knitting, sewing, doing those things, celebrating the release of the framed sweater pattern, that's an anchor. I feel certain doing, stitching every day, one stitch at a time. And also, a very important anchor for me is connecting. Connecting with friends and family and my loved ones. I mean, throughout the whole process of evacuation and the very early part of extreme uncertainty, are we going to have a home? Are we not? Are we going to go to North Carolina? Are we not? And what do I pack? What do I leave? And those kinds of things. It was, just what do I anchor in that moment? What do I know for certain right now? What is within my control? And so that's, you can have, and kind of as I shared, you can have multiple anchors, and your anchor can change depending on your needs in the moment. So those are my primary, recommendations for approaching uncertainty in life, whatever you are facing. And that really has been what I practiced. So the questions to ask yourself are, what is my anchor? And or what can I anchor in right now? If it's a very acute uncertainty, sometimes it is like, what can I anchor in right now? I will tell you, in those early days of evacuation, I knit maybe like a couple of stitches a day. I did still knit every day, but it was not very much, because I just was not, I just could not settle my mind. I couldn't sit still. What I anchored in those early days was my physical movement and connecting. I was on the phone with friends. I was on the phone with family. I was texting with people. That was a big anchor for me in those early days. Taking care of myself so I could take care of my kids, playing with the kids, getting the kids out to do things. That connection was really a big anchor for me. And then as things settled a bit more, like, movement was still there, connection was still there, but the creative anchor came into play more. So it's going to look unique to you what your anchor is or what your anchors are, but asking yourself, like, what's my anchor right now? And then inevitably control comes into play. And so the question to ask yourself is, what is within my control? And sometimes there's not a heck of a lot that's in our control. I mean, I'm not in control of whether a wildfire consumes my house or not. I'm not in control of, like, how I feel about that. I mean, the feelings that come up are going to be a very visceral reaction. I'm in control of my response to that. I'm in control of my response to the stress that I feel. I'm in control of what I eat, of how much I sleep. I'm in control of making sure that I, that I take care of myself, and that I am present, or as present as I can be, with my family. And so those are the things that you want to start, like, really honing in on whenever facing uncertainty. Along with that, trust that this too shall pass. I mean, uncertainty doesn't last forever. It changes. And it may be a different type of uncertainty, but clarity does emerge. And so, those are things that we really, or that I anchored in, and like me and my husband anchored in as we went through our whole experience. And so hopefully in sharing that, you can try that out for yourself. I do hope that it brings some benefit or comfort to you, no matter what you're experiencing. And let's see, I mean, I think that that's it. I mean, this is a long enough episode, so I do have a lot more things to, you know, share that I've been making and things like that. So there will be future episodes. So look for those from me. But until next time, I wish you all the best and happy mindful making.